This is going to be hopefully not too much of a long video, but it could be quite long. But it's basically going to be a review of the Braumeister, but a 10 litre version. You can see it's just next to me here. It's doing its magic. I've recorded a few steps on the way, and I'm going to probably put them up in the corner to show the process rather than record the whole thing. There's a few videos out there already of the other units, and this is one of the new models, the 2015 model that's got the new display on it. But there's other videos out there that sort of demonstrate the brew day, and I think most people generally know what the machine does, but I thought I'd run through a few things that I found not necessarily wrong with the machine, but are traits of the 10 litre possibly, and sort of things to be aware of, and the good things, and you know, is there any bad things? I don't know, we'll see at the end of the review, but I thought I'd like to, you know, cover everything and then put some footage in the corner rather than have the whole brew day. It's just actually deactivated the pump, which to loosen up the malt. Funny enough, I think it says that in the manual book, but it doesn't kind of, the wording where it says deactivation of the pump is a bit of a worry. Sometimes you read it and you think, God, why is the pump broken? The first time I ran it, I was a bit concerned, but it's just something that it does naturally to help it along its way. So firstly, the thing I'll address is the packaging that it comes in is fantastic, at least for the 10 litre. I've heard some people complain with the 50 litre that there's not quite enough packaging on the bottom legs when it comes, you know, from abroad and then comes here. It can, depending on the carrier, get thrown about and cause a little bit of damage to the legs and damage to the base. But most of the time, well, I'd say 100% of the time, they always get sorted either by the retailer or by Speidel themselves. They seem to be exceptional at customer service. So 10 litre one doesn't have that problem. It's a lot smaller and the packaging is, you know, compact enough, and it seems to keep it all together pretty well. The first thing I did notice upon opening it up, if I can get a picture of it, it's quite hard to get a camera in there and stop the light bouncing around to show it. There seem to be kind of two little, how can I say it, mounds in the bottom, which underneath here where the control unit is attached via kind of like some rod. There's two almost sort of dimples on the inside, and for me it looked instantly like, wow, eventually, if you know, this panel is going to force them up and it's going to crack the bottom. And I was a little bit worried. I contacted Speidel, and it seems that they're in a lot of pots. So I contacted a few other people, and when you look at some videos online, you can almost see these kind of, it's not really an imperfection, but you can see where the bottom of the pot is kind of, there's a slight sort of like indentation where that's fixed from the inside. And I think they said it was more to do with when they're fixed, or they're welded in there, it kind of causes a little mark and a kind of a little dimple, but it doesn't affect the sealing of the malt pipe. So, you know, that wasn't really an issue, but it was instantly something that I saw that, you know, when you get this machine, you spent the money, you think, wow, that's an issue, but it's not. You know, it's on most of the Braumeisters that I've seen now, so that's not really a concern anymore. So next thing is obviously the size. A lot of people will think, you know, why a 10 litre, but for me a 10 litre is fantastic. I tend to brew very small batches as it is, due to having a high turnover, being able to brew more often. Almost, with this machine, it's too easy to brew. It's like, too easy is the wrong word, but it's more convenient, I think is the correct word. When you're running it, it is almost set and forget, to the point that you can go off and do other jobs around the house, which for me, with family, children running around, I love the fact that there's no flames, nothing to worry about. You can put it on the side, run through the programs, you program your step mash prior, and you get this audible warning to tell you that you're on the next step. You know, already this morning I've managed to do most of the chores around the house while it's been doing the mash, and prior to that filling in the water, bringing it up to the strike temperature. It's perfect for that. So if you've got a busy lifestyle like most people have, or if you're small on space and you haven't got the room for a 3-vessel system, it's fantastic. But for me, the 10 litre is ideal. I kind of hope that a lot of other brewing machine companies will go down the route of producing smaller machines. I know, like Speidel obviously already do the, oh, we're at the end of the mash. You can hear the tone there. And then we've got to remove the malt pipe. We'll do that in a sec. But if you've, like I say, if you're limited on space, it's ideal. Speidel obviously already do the smaller malt pipe, 10 litre that goes in the 20 litre machine. So there's an option there. If you're not sure that you're going to be doing either or, you could get the 20 litre Braumeister and the 10 litre malt pint. But for me, this has extra benefits, which I will come to once I've done the malt pipe. So we've just pulled the malt pipe and I've done a sparge. You don't have to essentially do a sparge. It says in the Braumeister manual book that you don't really need to do this step, but I do anyway out of habit of doing it on other setups and that. But I've just used quite hot tap water topped up with a little bit of kettle water to bring it up to the temperature, which is great because you don't need a lot of sparge water for this unit. So rather than having another pan out, it's using what I've got already to save on time and space. Also, another great thing with this unit, due to its size, is now that I've pulled the malt pipe, it's just behind me, drain out any excess. I have it in the top to start with when it's ramping up to boil. It's at about 70 degrees or just over at the moment. It's dropped a little bit, but it did a mash out. Then that will drain into the bowl. Any excess I've collected, I'll pour back into the Braumeister itself. But the size factor is that once I've pulled this pipe and it's drained any extra work that I can get out of it, I'm going to clean it up in the sink and you can wash in as you go. But because it's so small, it can be washed in the sink, which is ideal. You know, generally with ever I'm washing up, it has to go to the bathroom or in the garden if I'm elsewhere. So with the space and the size of this, you can be in the kitchen, wash it in the kitchen, and you're done. You don't even need to leave that room. It's perfect for that. The other thing that I thought was an issue to start with when I got this unit, and is looking like it's transpiring that it's not an issue now. It's probably me over worrying due to things that I've seen in other setups and what we know to be true of sort of brewing systems, and it is the boil rate, or the boil vigour, if you like, more than anything, which I'll demonstrate once we get to boil and we add the hops and whatnot. But initially when I first got this unit, the boil sent very underwhelming, very weak compared to other systems. I've got an induction system, I've had gas system and electric system. They've all been sort of, the boil's been really vigorous, and we're told as home brewers that we're meant to have a good boil off rate to get rid of any DMS and things like that. And with this unit, first couple of brews, the first brew tended to be quite vigorous, and I think I've worked out why that was more vigorous than the other brews since then, and it was due to the fact that that was a more hoppy beer. It had a lot of hops to start with, and when the hops went in, it kind of caused a blanket on the top of the surface of the wort. Therefore, there was more heat retained, and it was kind of really going for it. Another beer that I did was a stout. I had less sort of first additions. It very underwhelming, almost like the wort wasn't even moving at all. It was just kind of, you could see that it was dancing a little bit on the surface, but nothing too crazy. Initially I thought the unit was broke. It actually went all the way back to Speidel. They tested it, they said that everything was fine. I didn't think that it was actually getting up to temperature properly, but a temperature is another factor depending on how much above sea level you are. Your boiling point might not be 100 degrees, it could be 98.9, or there's a chart that tells you how high above sea level you are will affect the rate of the boil. Also ambient temperature outside. There's many factors of if it will truly be boiling at 100 or just below it. But it transpires that everything was okay. Subsequent beer that I've tried from this, which was a stout, and where the boil was very kind of tepid, hardly anything going on, that stout is a recipe that I've brewed probably about 4 times now, and I've brewed it on 2 different setups. And after trying a bottle of it the other day, one that didn't explode for the first time on me, it was exceptional, as good as I brewed it elsewhere. So it does go to show that it probably was just me over worrying. I also did contact Speidel about it, and they confirmed that they had trialled different boil vigours, but when it was ramped up too high, too much work was lost. So hence you're going to end up with less beer. So they reduced it to a point that it's efficient enough to give you great beer still. I mean, to Spiegel's credit, they did initially say, don't worry, try the beer that's produced from it and see how you go. But I weren't sure. I was just kind of unconvinced because I'm used to seeing really lavery type boils and whatnot, and this was very, very sort of weak in that sense. So they reassured me, and to their credit, they were right. I mean, the beer that I tried was as good as it has been on any other system. So you can increase the boil if you like, and Speidel even told me to do this by using the the support bar that you get with it when you pull the malt pipe, they suggested that you can place that on top of there and the lid on top of that, so that the lid's not totally covering it, so it still allows some steam to escape, and that will give you a a more vigorous boil, which it does. But the knock-on effect is the boil rate is increased, so therefore you have to compensate for that. Speidel also do now make the dome for this that sits on top, which is something that I'd love to have in this setup, where I could then add a pipe going out the window, the aluminium pipe, and vent all the steam outside. I mean, they have these on big commercial breweries when you see the big vented pipe going up, so it looks the part, and it would have a dual use in this kind of setup. But again, obviously that's going to increase the boil rate. Also, I've padded mine out with a camping mat. Speidel sell, not at present, I don't think they sell it for the 10 litre, but I believe they are going to. Also at present there is no hop filter that they sell for the 10 litre. I've done a mixture of both. I did pellets last time, which worked quite well, and I just did a whirlpool with a spoon. That worked quite well. I tried hot bags, that works well, but now I've kind of gone to an old brew in the bag that's slightly smaller than my bigger one. I fixed that round the top, and all the hops go in that, and I just pull it out at the end, and that seems to work just as well. But to be fair, when I even used whole hops, and I didn't put a filter in, because it's just a little, the tap is much different to the other units. It's almost like a little cast tap fitted with a stainless steel hole on the back inside the pot. It's very close to the elements in the pot as well, so it's very tricky to kind of either make anything yourself or kind of, but Speidel's one on their other units is like a sliver of stainless steel like mesh that sort of tucks down there, and it's fixed to the outside. So whether or not they are going to make one for the 10 litre, I don't know, but it hasn't really caused me an issue so far with using whole hops. Most of them have tended to got stuck around the element and not really gone near the tap, and it's never blocked as yet, so that's another plus point. So yeah, the boil rate was a concern. I'll video it and show you, but like I say, it hasn't proven to be any real issue. I'm doing quite a hoppy beer today, so at the end of this, all this video, I'll hopefully review that beer as well. It's another beer that I've had before, and kind of give a comparison just to show that it is still as good for what it is. It's been designed by them to work as efficiently as it is with the boil rate that it's been given, so credit to them. Alright, if you just see, it's beeping away because it's asking for the first edition of hops, but you can see there's a little bit of activity going on boil wise. Right, we'll add the first hops. Let's turn that off. As you can see, it looks like not a lot is happening at the moment, but once they settle in, it should jump up a little bit more, and I'll cut. Right, so there we go. After a couple of minutes of adding the hops, we got a little bit more activity, which doesn't look too bad of a boil actually. It's dancing around quite nice. I tend to find that on a less hoppy beer, you'll find the surface is sometimes barely breaking, but for today, while we've got like quite a healthy dose of hops in there, it's doing its thing quite well. So ironically, I forgot to leave or put the hop bag in to start with, so we got a few loose hops in there, but you can see the vigour of the boil now it moves the wort around, but it's not jumping out like some boil pots. But like I said, it doesn't really seem to affect the beer, so it's obviously been made this way, and it's not a cause for concern. This is going to be the final part or the conclusion of the 10 litre Braumeister, and I thought I'd crack open the beer that I brewed at the start of this video, just to give it a little taste test and review that, as well as my kind of final thoughts on the unit itself. Now the beer itself is pretty clear, probably comes out a lot darker on the camera than what it is here. It's a little bit hazy, but it had kind of a hefty dry hop of Amarillo into it as well. It was just a single hop Amarillo ale, and I got to admit at first I wasn't too sure if it had been a successful brew day, but I think it's mainly due to the fact that when I first started brewing, Amarillo was fantastic, and for me now as a hop it's just not quite up there with some of the other hops that I prefer, and it kind of feels underwhelming for me now. Unless it's like a combination, it's in like an IPA with loads of other different hops that I more favour, but like with anything, I think I had started drinking it too early. It's been probably 3 weeks in the bottle now, and it's starting to come a lot better. It's really good. Hoppiness is a little bit more there. Carbonation is spot on for me now, for a change. I can't say any of that is attributed to the actual using the Braumeister itself, but it's definitely a reflection that the boil in the Braumeister is okay, and it hasn't affected the utilisation of the hops, which was a worry for me when I was initially using it. The boil was so underwhelming compared to the vigour I've had of other boils in my setups that it made me think that would it be as good and still produce, great beer, and it's clear that it has. It's fantastic. Any kind of little off taste that I did taste in this beer at first, I think is probably down to my own setup, because the interesting thing is I tasted something in this beer that I've tasted in previous beers that I've brewed on many setups, so that's a fault of my own, not of the unit. So to a little bit of a roundup then, for me, plus points and sort of bad points. There isn't a whole heap of bad points, if any, to be fair. I wrote a few down, I would just forget them otherwise. Small size, I think that's a big key for me. Brewing in a flat, children and family, the size of the Braumeister, or maybe other Braumeisters as well as a whole, it's a lot less fuss. You can get it out, you can put it away very quickly, and with the 10 litre it's washed up in the sink. You can pretty much wash up as you're going along, and there's not many units you can say you can wash up in the kitchen sink, quite literally. And I think for that it gets full marks. I don't know if there's any other system out there that brews that small and is that well built. None of the other producers of machines out there are making a small unit yet, so there's a lesson to be learned there from them that no one else is producing those yet. And Speidel are the first to the punch, if you like, and I can see there's a market for it. Looking on the Braumeister forum, there are a few people now that do own the 10 litre version, so it's gaining popularity. It's not to say it's for everyone. I think most people will probably go for the 20 litre and then the 10 litre malt pipe, but each to their own. The batch size I think is fantastic for me personally as well. The turnover, sometimes I produce a beer through my own fault mainly, it might not be quite to my liking. 10 litres isn't so much to worry about as opposed to 20 litres. I know some people would say, well, why brew 10 when you can brew 20? But I like the quick turnaround. I can do 2 small fermenters and do 2 very different beers, and it won't take me that long. To be fair, I could brew twice over the course of a weekend and not be too taxing on my kind of family life, because it's sort of there in the background doing its thing and I can attend to it when I need to. The build quality, fantastic. It's second to none. There's nothing really that I can fault on it in terms of how it's built. It seems to do everything that it says it will, and what more can I ask of it? It's kind of the quality of the workmanship on it. You can see why the asking price is what it is, but there's a little bit, I'll go on to that later on. Customer service, initially when I was worried about the boil, the unit got sent back, they tested it and it came back all very smooth. I would say, in terms of customer service, 100%. You're paying for this product, but it's an investment, and you're getting that investment in return. And the customer service they give back, it's not kind of like, we got your money, see you later. They do want to help. Any problems you got, they really are good at it. I can't stress that enough. They are fantastic. The sparge, if you don't have to do sparge, but you can. I'm sure in the manual it even says that you can do cold water sparging, but that's a whole other thing. but the amount you need to sparge with this unit is, at most, you can do it in your kettle or in a small pan on the stove. Again, less equipment, a quicker day, easier day. Would I go back to a free vessel system versus this? I think it depends on if you have space constraints and time constraints. It's not necessarily going to save you a whole heap of time, but I think the automation allows you to do other jobs while that unit is doing its job. So I don't expect it to be like kind of the all kind of time saving brewing device, because you do still need to do stuff. You know, you're lifting the pipe, you're adding the hops. It's not going to do everything for you, which if it did everything for you, it probably would put even more people off, because you know, people do want the hands-on aspect, and if you took everything away, I don't know, it might be too much for some people. But there are still elements where you need to, you know, intervene and do stuff, so it's not kind of wholly hands off, but it is kind of allowing you to get on with other jobs while it's doing its thing, and the setup as well. You know, it's one pot, it's all there. The boil vigour was probably the only kind of, it's not a fault, because proven with this beer that it's not a fault. It's kind of hard to get used to, I guess, from an all-grain brewer's point of view, where you've had vigorous boils, either gas or electric. You know, you come to that and you think, whoa, that's not right. But you know, it's not an issue. It's been designed that way. And they even commented back to me after I asked that, you know, because it's been designed that way to allow the amount of evaporation anymore, you'd end up with a whole heap going off. Wi-Fi connectivity is on the way. There's like a little module you can get. You plug into the back of the Braumeister, and I think you can see the brew process through your app on your phone. Not sure that's for me personally. I can see the appeal to the you know, the technological side of, you know, people want to, you know, do monitor it and that, but you know, that's a whole other thing that's coming. There are extras you obviously buy with the Braumeister. I guess some people might consider that a kind of like a bad point, because you need to buy extras, but then I guess it's business sense. You know, a company's not going to basically give you everything you need from the start. There are always extras you can add. You might not necessarily need to add them, but for me, I guess personally, should you have a hop filter with a unit for the money? Maybe not. You know, with the 10 litre, there isn't the hop filter present as such. With the 20 and the 50, they do make one. Using pellets and doing a whirlpool, it's probably not really needed with the 10 litre. The 20 and the 50, from what I've heard, the hop filter works fantastically with leaf hops, and with pellets again, a whirlpool with a spoon, and it's fine. But I guess some people look at it and the price point and think, you know, what, I should be getting more for my money, why doesn't it have a hop filter? But you know, it's hard to say. The jacket, you know, you could probably make your own out of a camping mat or something else. But then if you want the whole look of how it, you know, aesthetics wise, you get the actual Speidel jacket, then fantastic. The hood, I've seen people make their own. Got to admit, you know, the hood that the Speidel make is fantastic. It looks the part, but I do wish that it had its own handles attached to it. From what I've heard from people's experiences, you know, they touch it, it's really hot. Why didn't they design it with handles on it straight away? Who knows? Or why isn't there already a hop filter in the unit? I guess it's, you know, about making sort of the extras after the purchase. Again, you can buy a stainless steel chiller, like the immersion chiller, or you can use your own, whatever you've got already. Other benefits as well, you could do overnight mashing. A lot of people overnight mash on the Braumeister, set it, leave it to do the mash, lift the pipe in the morning, much like a brew in a bag, and then off you go with the boil. But there's one other thing I think to touch on, is that I see a few people that have bought Braumeister or looking at various things, and not just the Braumeister, other units, that the Braumeister only make good work, not beer for you, because at the end of the day there's still kind of the fermentation process, there's lots of other steps after it's made that work that you can go wrong. And I see some people that have bought it thinking it's kind of, there'll be this all-in-one machine that will create the perfect beer. And I think what it does well, the Braumeister, is repeatability. It's consistent in the efficiency that it will produce for you once you've kind of dialed your numbers in, got your crush right. It's going to give you repeatability of and consistency in recipes
but not necessarily give you fantastic beer if you can't ferment it at the right temperature or your sanitation's not right. And I see a few disappointed people when they've got these machines and they can't work out where they've gone wrong. And there are obviously other steps to making beer, and I think sometimes people buy these machines and they expect it to do everything when it can't quite. It's only going to go so far for you. So that's probably something to take on board if you're looking at getting one. But I think for me, a Braumeister, if you're short on space and a little bit short on time maybe as well is a constraint, then they are a godsend. I can't see why you wouldn't get a Braumeister. Build quality, I mean, I really can't fault it in terms. I mean, if I wanted to say the one fault, then maybe it should come with the hop filter, maybe. But there's no real kind of fault to it. There's no workmanship, how it works. It is kind of the best there is in terms of brewing machines. So, I think that about wraps it up. I can't really, I literally have been sitting there thinking, how can I like to be kind of, what do I think's wrong with it? But there's not really a whole heap to grab from it that I think is a bad point. It is a great machine. It's great in terms of quality. I remember early days when I started getting into brewing, I kind of think it's the kind of the very top of kind of brewing machines. And when you do get one, you see why it is. It's fantastic. So, cheers.